Generally, Hannah ducked her head and tried to go unnoticed whenever anyone mentioned Gabe Holbrook. There were too many folks in town who hadn't yet forgiven her for destroying their favorite football star. She suspected they were more upset that they could no longer bask in his reflected glory than they were about his loss, but they often shook their heads and tisked when she passed by, especially at the beginning of football season and in the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. Today, the mention of Gabe's name made Hannah as self-conscious as ever. When Trudy Johnson started talking about the new coach at the high school, Hannah cursed silently and raised the cookbook she'd brought into the hair salon. She should have expected the town to be buzzing with the latest news. Folks in Dundee took school sports very seriously. Here, the high school coach possessed almost as much clout as the mayor. "I never dreamed he'd accept the position," Trudy was saying. "I know." Over the top of her book, Hannah saw 30-ish Shirley Ehrman crane her head around even though Ashley Evans was trying to put perm rods in her hair. Saturdays were always busy at the beauty shop. "He's been living like a hermit for 3 years," she said. "Then suddenly, he's the new coach of the varsity football team? I mean, I hate that Coach Hill passed away, but I think it's great Gabe's willing to take over." Hannah agreed. In her opinion, Gabe needed to feel passionate about something again, to regain his zest for life. But she didn't say anything. She wasn't sure she wanted to draw attention to herself and suffer through that awkward moment when the others realized that she, the person who'd ended his career, was sitting only a few feet away. "He'll do a good job." Rebecca Hill was giving Trudy a short, jagged cut that looked far too vogue for a little town in Idaho. But that was the beauty of Rebecca. She was artistic and dramatic, and she followed her heart. Since marrying Mike's brother a few years ago, she'd grown slightly more conservative, especially since the birth of their baby, but she'd never be plain or boring, and her salon reflected that. Gone was the faded candy cane-striped wallpaper and pale pink vinyl of the beauty parlor Hannah remembered from her childhood. Now the salon was decorated in black and white and chrome, had a checkered floor, sleek contemporary lighting, and vases filled with exotic flowers. Recently, Rebecca had even changed the name, after she'd remodeled and expanded to include facials, electrolysis, massage, and aromatherapy. Hair and Now had become Sheer Temptation, located next to an old-fashioned drugstore on one side and a red brick bank on the other. Sheer Temptation looked like a spaceship parked between 2 Model Ts. "Being a good player doesn't make someone a good coach," a voice nearby responded. A quick peek around her book told Hannah that Deborah Wheeler, one of Coach Blaine's daughters, had made that comment from a seat in the waiting area closer to the front desk. Hannah had been so absorbed in trying to go unnoticed that she hadn't seen Deborah come in. She lowered her cookbook. "Being a good player doesn't make someone a bad coach," she said, rushing to Gabe's defense in spite of herself. Now that he was venturing back into society, she wanted to make sure he received the support he deserved. Everyone's gaze momentarily fixed on her. She waited for someone to mention the accident, but, thankfully, nobody did. "I just want what's good for Gabe," Shirley said, turning back to Deborah. "If coaching will give him fresh purpose, I'm all for it." "Even if he's not cut out for the job?" Deborah countered. "Even if he doesn't win very much," Shirley said. "My husband might disagree, but I say we can't expect every season to be as good as the last few. Gabe needs this." Deborah had a thin, angular face. Now she pursed her lips, as though it tried her patience to deal with folks obviously less educated than herself. She taught honors English at the high school and acted as if she knew everything. Some of the ladies in town made fun of her, but she had her admirers. "Gabe doesn't need this job," she said. "He made millions while he was playing football. And anyway, no one should get a coaching